Hey, I thought as per usual I would give a review of shit that I did yesterday, shit that I watched yesterday. So yesterday I watched half of Oppenheimer and Pineapple Express, which I have seen so this is a review of Pineapple Express. I've seen Pineapple Express. This is possibly like the fourth time watching it. It came out when I was maybe somewhere between 16 to 18. I remember that it was heavily quotable in my circle of friends that I had when I was a teenager. Shit like, you just got fucked up by a Daewoo Lanus motherfucker, and which is there's just some great comedy in there. It's stupid. It's silly. It's all over the place. It's got like a great message to it, and it's also got some serious shit in there. One of the things that I find, I guess, how the film makes you feel is there's a great sense of camaraderie in the actors, in the characters. And I guess that comes from them all working together quite a lot. Obviously, it's a little bit weird. Um, I don't know how I feel about the whole cancel culture. I'm not really a huge fan. I think holding actors, actresses, athletes accountable to these crazy standards. I mean, I think what's the guy's name? James Franco, right? I mean, I don't really I don't almost don't want to look into what he got caught for. I think it might have been young girls. I think I don't know. So like I'm not going to defend him personally if he was into some dodgy shit. It's a shame because I watched a lot of stuff he was in. The Stephen King adaptation of what was it called? Like 12, 20, the whatever the Stephen King adaptation was, where it's about time travel. I read the book as well. Um, One sec. It is called 11/22/63. Um, he obviously Spider-Man, like, when I heard that Sam Raimi, I was a huge fan of the Evil Dead at the time that huge fan of Evil Dead at the time that and also a huge fan of Spider-Man when the first Spider-Man films came out. I'd grown up watching the Marvel Spider-Man cartoons where they were I later found out they were pretty close to the comics. The Spider-Man cartoon, the X-Men cartoon, the Fantastic Four cartoon. There was quite a lot of crossover there. I was just super happy to see the X-Men were brought back. Although I haven't watched it yet. Um, and yeah, so like James Franco's, it was weird. It's weird when these actors and actresses that have been a huge, all of these, I think you're just supposed to say actors now, but like when these huge figures get taken out like this, it's really strange to see it, really really crazy to see these people that have essentially been like like a big part of your life almost in a weird way just to get removed from your life, like no, you're not allowed to watch this person anymore. Anyway, so I guess Seth Rogen had been in quite a lot of stuff with James Franco. I think going back to Freaks and Geeks, which they were probably quite young in that. um and then a whole host of comedy films. Watching Pineapple Express. So yeah, that was one of the feelings it gave me, was like a great feeling of you want to be on the set. It's almost like that great set energy seems to bring out the best in the actors, because I don't know if I've ever seen Craig Robinson as funny as he is in that film. He's great. He's almost as funny in Eastbound and Down. He's great in a ton of other films. I'm a big fan of Hot Tub Time Machine. I nearly near enough whenever I see Craig Robinson in something, I watch it because it's almost guaranteed to be at least above average. But the guy, I don't think he's ever been funnier than it's almost just like his timing and his delivery in that film is so fucking phenomenal. Also crazy to see him in sort of shape. After that, he seemed to blow the fuck up into a fairly large guy. yeah, like that's what it makes me feel is that they were all on such top form. And I mean, Seth Rogen's still great now, but there was really a long run there where like Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, and uh, James Franco, fuck, I can't. Craig Robinson, the guy from Eastbound and Down as well, is really shit that I can't remember his name. They see every single thing that they seemed to touch was like gold. They had the Midas touch for a good like 10 years there. Even stuff like I can't remember the guy's name that's been a huge part of like the writing process with them as well. He's uh, there's that End of the World film. J something. He's in a ton of good horror films. I feel. Um, and like stuff like Future Man, massively underrated, you know. I never really hear people talk about how good Future Man is, and I think that that was one of my favorite series. The fact it only got like three series was crazy. I thought that that was so funny. Like, but like those guys, nearly everything that they touched, and still to this day, they're great. You know, like the running. I I I don't know if I've sort of outgrown the boys to an extent, but like I couldn't really get into the last series. I know that's a shame to say, but maybe I think that that might be more of a me thing because everybody seems to love it. Anyway, Pineapple Express, like yeah, I mean, this was near the beginning. Knocked Up was decent, but nowhere near as good as this. Yeah, they were in some great films back then, and still now to this day. So like, yeah, I was really that's the feeling that it gave me. I mean, I guess with comedy, that's what you're looking for. I guess it's a great message of like the whole stoner thing of like for me I don't smoke weed anymore because it just makes me lazy, you know. But I'd say that since I stopped smoking weed at maybe like 21 after smoking it from 13, smoking it every day from like 15. I started, so we're going back about 14 years ago that I stopped for the most part. Every like year or two or three, I'll go through a little phase where I'll smoke for a couple of months, you know. Um, And I have no problem with it. I have no problem with being lazy for a month here and a month there. But like for me, what I notice is that when I'm active, I'm almost active to a fault. And what I seem to do is almost like hibernate, you know. And I don't need weed to do that. Right now, I'm in a 2 week slump of coming off the back of being fairly active for a while and then no, and now I'm feeling my time with being active in other ways. You know, I don't have the energy to do physical exercise, I guess, or cycling or whatever. But I don't mind that. But like, my point being that I don't need weed to do this. What I find that weed is great for is making you think in a different way. I used to not like it because I used to think it made me think too much, but actually that's not the case. I feel like once you get out of the rhythm of smoking weed, then it can sort of grow your mind in a great way. And funnily enough, like it is one of those things where almost all the shit that you think is like paranoia and conspiracy when you're younger, you grow old and you grow older and you think, oh, that's crazy how paranoid I am or how much I overthink stuff. And then you grow older and you're like, all of this shit's true. Do you know what I mean? Like you grow older and you go, all of this shit's real. So there's really a great message in there. Um, for sort of I guess for a lot of like weed smokers thinking like for the most part you should trust what you think. Obviously there's sort of like a whole thing where conspiracies get manipulated and all of a sudden you believe that Donald Trump is a time traveler. You know, not the greatest, not the greatest to see shit manipulated. But as I sort of say with my message, like the point of a lot of stuff is just see the organism almost, see the central nervous system, see the nucleus, like see what it's capable of, and just have just be aware of what they're capable of. It's really not been that long since Nazis overtook Germany or um, MK Ultra. It's really not been that long since World War Two. It's really not been that long, you know. So just always be aware of what they are capable of. Yeah, look at the shit that's going on now in the UK with all these rallies on both sides. You know, criminal damage, all the shit with Tommy Robinson and whatever. It's madness. Um, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. So like, yeah, there's a great message within that. Also, one of the things that I noticed, I don't know, I don't know, I don't think that you would call this an Easter egg, but what one thing that I don't, not sure if I noticed before because it's been so long since I watched Pineapple Express. Um, at the start of the film, there's like a black and white scene where they go back in time to like where the military were testing weed smoke on, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's a great actor. He's in the film with Jonah Hill where he's a kid as a cop. I don't know. It's a shame that I don't know his name because he's also phenomenal. I think he used to write for South Park. This guy, I can't remember his name. Know stuff about his life and a bunch of films that he's been in. Don't know his name. Um, but he was in at the start of the film, he's smoking weed and he's does like a speech which we used to rate a lot back in the day. I actually think it comes off as pretty cheesy these days. Um, but he basically at the start of the film, there's a guy walks into the room and passes him a lighter. That they've got the guy smoking weed in a confined room. I'm guessing that's their way of saying they don't want the smoke to get out because they don't want to be affected by it. And the guy walks in like a underwater, in like a really old school scuba diving suit. And I'm guessing what you think, what you're supposed to think is, oh, they don't want any chance of any of the smoke getting into their lungs and intoxicating them. He then walks out and locks the door and leaves him in there, and the army sergeant guy who plays Dexter's dad. I also don't know his name, but he's been in a lot of stuff that I've enjoyed. He says cancel this project or whatever, right? Now later on in the film, when Saul and Saul, I can't get over thinking of Saul Goodman whenever I think of the name Saul now. I think there was also a big biblical character named Saul. When Saul and Seth Rogen's character are in the are in handcuffs later on when they're taken to the criminal's lair. They walk through. I think Saul calls it El Dorado. He says he walks in and goes El Dorado. The rumors are true when he's dragged down there. And he goes purple Kush. No, he goes through a load of different types of weed. OG Kush, purple something, purple Nurple, something else. And he's walking through, and then he gets to, and it's this huge weed farm and then he gets taken into a little prison room where he's put in handcuffs. And then Seth Rogen gets caught. His name is Dale Denton in the film. And they think that because he has a load of costumes, he actually works for the government serving people notices. And because people in the US, I think at that time there was some sort of rumor where if you didn't receive your notice, if you didn't like open the letter, then you could say that you weren't served or whatever, right? And so he uh, puts himself in costumes in order to trick people into giving them their notice, dresses in a bunch of different identities. So they begin to think that that Dale Denton is a hitman sent from the Asians from who the head guy is at war with, which you think is like a sort of simple metaphor for the US probably being at war with China and whatever. And funnily enough, they call them the Asians, and I think Bobby Lee is in the film later on, who I'm pretty sure is of Korean heritage, and he's I guess they don't ever call them Chinese. I think they call them Asian. But um, yeah, shame that Bobby Lee only had one line in the film. To be honest with you, fan of Bobby Lee. Um, and yeah, like weird. And then when they're in the prison, when Saul and Dale Denton are in the prison and they do the sort of like I don't know if this scene would have aged well, but they do the sort of like mock gay sex thing. And you see that suit, you see that the suit that the guy walks into the room in to avoid the weed smoke. You see that hung in the background of the prison cell. And you think, oh, they're indicating at this point that that they're leaving a sign there indicating that it's the government running drugs and weed smoking. And you go through like it's funny, isn't it? Because you go through the film and on one layer you go, this is also stupid. It's almost like you're going, well, what if all the stuff that you were paranoid about came true when you smoked weed? And then when you get older and you've been completely sober for a long time and you go, all the stuff that they're talking about is fucking true. And then you see that you see a lot of the different shit that these people get into, and you go, well, yeah, it's lowering your inhibitions, and it's doing this, and so I guess that was their way of saying that, like, this government program, this government experiment is still very much going on. I guess that was what they were saying by leaving that scuba diving costume that was seen in the start of the film that the military guy was wearing. I guess that was their way of indicating that this is very much still a government experiment going on. Um, yeah, but like, so I guess it's always good when you it's almost like watching horror films when there's a message and allegory and metaphor in there, but it doesn't overpower the film. I think for me, I'm not the hugest fan of like crazy art house horror. I think Hannibal series 2 did it to a decent way. However, even on a rewatch of that, I felt like it was insanely pretentious, and it put me off watching it. Whereas that there are great ways that you can add intention, other meaning to your artwork without. Do you know what I mean? Like you can get it looked at upon different levels, and I think when comedy and horror does that really well, um, it makes you really, really happy with the product. You know what I mean? Like, when you can watch a film on like three or four different levels, it makes you much happier with the film. Um, so yeah, was a big fan of rewatching Pineapple Express. I guess for me, I got an hour. I've seen Oppenheimer before, and I got an hour and a half in, and I thought I really, really enjoy this, but my neck's sort of hurting and I want to watch something that I don't necessarily have to pay a massive amount of attention to. That was my thing. And usually, when I don't want to pay a massive amount of attention to something, I choose horror or comedy. Um, so yeah, like huge fan of Pineapple Express, big fan of all those actors, big fan of the messages that are in there, I guess, big fan of the subtlety of some of the messages. Big fan of it making me laugh, and those guys in general just making me laugh for so many years. Um, so yeah, yeah, big fan of Pineapple Express. If you've not seen it, would definitely recommend watching it, and if you haven't seen it for a long time, I would recommend going back to it.